History is written by the victors, but for 16 years, the victors were too terrified to even pick up the pen. In the cold halls of the Roman Senate, they didn't speak of storms or plagues. They whispered one name. A name that sounded like the crushing of bones and the march of ghosts. Hannibal. Across the Mediterranean, a vow was made in blood. A man who didn't just want to defeat Rome, he wanted to erase its soul. He took the impossible path, leading an army of mercenaries and African giants across the frozen hell of the Alps. Most called it suicide. He called it an appetizer. This is not just a story of war. It is a study of a genius who played the world's greatest empire like a fiddle. Welcome to Epic Histories. Today, we witness the rise of the man who became Rome's living nightmare. To understand the fire that burned in Hannibal's soul, we must travel back to a blood-stained altar in Carthage. Hannibal was only 9 years old when his father, the legendary general Hamilcar Barca, led him to the temple. The air was thick with incense and the scent of sacrifice. Hamilcar placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Rome has humiliated us. They have stolen our islands and our pride." He looked deep into his son's eyes. "Swear that as soon as you are of age, you will never be a friend to Rome." The boy did not blink. He placed his small hand on the altar and whispered, "I swear, I will be the enemy of Rome for as long as I live." This wasn't just a child's promise, it was a death warrant for hundreds of thousands of Romans. Years passed, and the boy's vow became a man's obsession. In the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal did what no general in history dared to attempt. He didn't sail to Rome, he marched to it, through the sky. With 50,000 soldiers, 9,000 cavalry, and 37 massive war elephants, he entered the Alps. It was a journey into a vertical graveyard. Men froze where they stood, horses slipped off jagged cliffs, screaming into the abyss. But Hannibal didn't stop. He walked among his starving men, eating what they ate, sleeping on the frozen ground beside them. When they finally reached the summit and looked down at the sun-drenched plains of Italy, they were no longer just an army. They were a weapon of vengeance. The Roman Senate sent everything they had to stop him. 86,000 soldiers, the largest army Rome had ever assembled. They met at Cannae. Hannibal was outnumbered, his back against the river. But he had a trap that would haunt military academies for the next 2,000 years. He didn't push, he pulled. He let his center retreat, drawing the Romans into a giant U-shape. Then, the trap snapped shut. His cavalry charged from the rear, his African infantry slammed the flanks. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an industrial-scale slaughter. By sunset, 50,000 Romans lay dead in the dust. For the first time in history, Rome was paralyzed with fear. Hannibal won every battle. But he could not win the war. For 15 years he ravaged Italy, but Rome refused to surrender. They were a monster that grew a new head every time one was cut off. Eventually, the ghost had to return home. At the Battle of Zama, Hannibal finally met his match, and Carthage fell. Years later, old and exiled, with Roman assassins closing in, Hannibal refused to give them the satisfaction of his capture. He took a ring from his finger, containing a secret poison. "Let us ease the Roman people of their long anxiety," he whispered, and drank. Hannibal Barca died, but his name became eternal. He was the man who showed the world that even a godlike empire can bleed. Hannibal is gone. But for centuries after his death, Roman mothers would still quiet their crying children by whispering the same 3 words: Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal is at the gates. He didn't just fight an empire, he became its permanent nightmare. The history of the world is not made by those who followed the rules, but by those who had the courage to break them. This was the first chapter of our journey. There are many more titans waiting in the shadows of time. Join us, subscribe to Epic Histories, and never look at the past the same way again. I'll see you in the next war.